Blood dripped from Lee Min-suk's face as 5 men surrounded him in the darkness. The most feared mafia boss in Seoul was about to die. His knees hit the concrete. A gun pressed against his skull. Then footsteps echoed through the warehouse. A woman's voice cut through the silence. "Let him go." The gangsters laughed until they saw what she was holding. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back 3 weeks. Min-suk ruled Seoul's underworld with an iron fist. Everyone feared him. No one dared cross him. Meanwhile, Naomi Brooks served coffee at a small shop downtown, navigating a world that often overlooked her. Then one ordinary Tuesday morning, he walked through her door. She smiled. He noticed. And she had no idea that serving him a simple cup of coffee would seal both their fates. This story is about to take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't forget. If you're already hooked by how a simple act of kindness between strangers turned into a life-or-death rescue, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me, would you risk everything to save someone who once helped you? And subscribe because this tale of unexpected love and redemption is just getting started. You won't want to miss what happens next. Alright, buckle up. Let's dive into how these two worlds collided. 3 weeks before the warehouse, Lee Min-suk stood alone in his penthouse, watching the city breathe beneath him. Seoul stretched endlessly beyond the glass, lights pulsing, traffic flowing like veins, lives intersecting without ever touching his. From this height, everything looked small, manageable, owned. Behind him, the room was immaculate and lifeless. Polished marble floors reflected soft lighting. Expensive art hung untouched, chosen by consultants who understood money better than meaning. The silence was so complete it felt deliberate, as if even sound knew better than to linger around him. A meeting unfolded at the long black table near the center of the room. His subordinates stood rather than sat, suits crisp, faces carefully neutral. They spoke in clipped sentences, delivering updates, profits, warnings. No one wasted words. No one met his eyes for longer than necessary. Kim Jae-sung has been active near the Easter docks, one man reported. More movement than usual. Min-suk listened without reacting, fingers resting calmly against the glass in his hand. He didn't need to ask what that meant. He had built his empire by recognizing patterns before they became threats. "Let him move," Min-suk said quietly. His voice carried no anger, no urgency, only certainty. Men who rush are usually desperate. The room exhaled, tension easing just enough to breathe. Respect lived here. Fear thrived. But connection? That had never been part of the deal. When the meeting ended, they bowed and left in silence. The doors closed softly behind them, sealing Min-suk back into his solitude. He poured himself a drink he didn't want and stared at the amber liquid as memories surfaced uninvited. Dark corridors, bloodied knuckles, decisions made too young and paid for too long. Faces he no longer remembered clearly. Lines he had crossed because survival demanded it. Every step upward had cost him something human. He had told himself it was necessary. That fear was cleaner than chaos. That power kept him alive. But alone, with nothing but his thoughts and the city below, the question returned like it always did. I built an empire on fear, he thought. But who fears for me? His reflection stared back from the glass, sharp eyes, controlled expression, a man carved into something unbreakable and unbearably alone. Later that night, his driver waited by the elevator, surprised when Min-suk reached for his coat. "Cancel my schedule tomorrow," Min-suk said. "I'm going out." The driver hesitated. "Sir, without security?" Min-suk paused, then gave a faint, almost invisible smile. "Just for a while." It was an unusual decision. A reckless one, some would say. But as he stepped into the night, away from guards and shadows and expectations, something inside him stirred, an unfamiliar restlessness, a quiet pull towards something ordinary. He didn't know where he was going. Only that, for once, He didn't want to feel untouchable. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed softly as Naomi Brooks flipped the sign to open and tied her apron at the small of her back. Morning light spilled through the windows, catching the steam rising from freshly brewed coffee. She inhaled deeply, letting the familiar scent steady her. This was her place of calm before the day tested her patience. She moved easily behind the counter, greeting regulars by name, remembering orders without writing them down. An extra foam swirl here. A dash of cinnamon there. Small kindnesses passed hand to hand with every cup. Naomi's smile came naturally, not forced, not practiced, but earned through years of learning how warmth could soften even the sharpest mornings. Not everyone returned it. A man near the register glanced at her name tag and frowned. "You speak Korean pretty well," he said, as if surprised. "Where are you really from?" Naomi felt the familiar sting, brief but sharp. She kept her voice calm, professional. "I'm from here. Your latte will be ready in a moment." He shrugged, unconvinced, but said nothing more. Naomi handed him his drink with the same polite smile she gave everyone else. She had learned long ago that dignity didn't require explanations. The shop filled gradually, voices overlapping, cups clinking, life moving forward. Then the door chimed again, and everything shifted. A man stepped inside, tall and sharply dressed, his presence heavy enough to quiet the room without a word. Conversation stalled. A few customers stiffened. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Naomi looked up and met his eyes. There was no mistaking him. Not because she recognized his face, but because of the stillness around him. The way people instinctively made space. The way danger lingered beneath his calm expression, like a coiled wire. Lee Min-suk approached the counter. "What can I get you?" Naomi asked gently. No fear crept into her voice.
No hesitation.
Just the same tone she used for everyone. Min-suk blinked once, clearly caught off guard. "Black coffee," he said after a beat. She nodded, coming right up. As she worked, he watched her hands, steady, unhurried, careful. No one had looked at him like this in years. Not as a legend, not as a threat, just as a man waiting for his drink. She placed the cup in front of him. "Here you go." Their fingers almost brushed. Something unspoken passed between them. Quiet, unfamiliar. Min-suk lifted the cup, took a sip. It was simple, perfectly made. He didn't know why that mattered so much. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," Naomi replied, smiling. He left without another word, the bell chiming softly behind him as the room slowly exhaled. The noise returned, but something had changed. Naomi watched the door for a moment longer than necessary. Her coworker leaned closer. "You okay?" Naomi nodded, thoughtful.
"Yeah."
He just seemed, she paused, searching for the right word. Lonely. And somewhere down the street, Lee Min-suk walked on, carrying more than just a cup of coffee. Several days passed before Naomi heard the bell chime in that particular way again. She was wiping down the counter, lost in the rhythm of another morning rush when the room subtly shifted. It wasn't loud. It never was. It was the way conversation softened, the way shoulders stiffened. She looked up and there he was. Lee Min-suk stood just inside the doorway, coat immaculate, expression unreadable. For a moment, something flickered across his face, almost uncertainty, as though he were testing unfamiliar ground. This was the first place he had ever returned to. The realization sat heavy in his chest. Naomi's face lit up before she could stop it. Her smile was genuine, unguarded, as if she were greeting an old friend instead of a man whispered about in fearful tones. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Black coffee." His lips twitched, almost a smile. "Please." As she prepared his drink, two customers near the register snickered loudly. One leaned toward the other, voice dripping with cruelty. "Figures. Bet she learned that smile just to fit in." Another added mockingly, Probably not even her real name. Naomi heard every word. Her shoulders tensed, but she kept her head high. She placed Min-suk's cup on the counter, then turned calmly to the men. Gentlemen, if there's an issue, I can call my manager. Otherwise, I'll need you to keep your comments respectful. They laughed. Louder this time. Min-suk saw it all. The tightness around her eyes, the controlled calm that came from long practice. Something dark stirred inside him. He set his cup down. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. That will be enough, he said softly. The words cut through the room like a blade. The men turned, bravado draining from their faces as they finally took him in. His gaze was steady, cold, promising consequences without naming them. You should leave, Min-suk continued.
Now.
They didn't argue. Chairs scraped back. Coffee was abandoned. Within seconds, the door slammed shut behind them, the bell ringing sharply in their wake. Silence followed. Naomi exhaled shakily. You didn't have to do that, she said, meeting his eyes. Yes, I did, Min-suk replied. She hesitated. Why? He searched for the answer, surprised when it came easily. Because it was right. Something shifted between them then, an unspoken understanding. Naomi saw past the reputation, glimpsing the man beneath the monster. Min-suk felt something he hadn't felt in years, seen without fear. He finished his coffee, nodding once before leaving. Naomi watched him go, her heart strangely full. Later, as she replayed the moment in her mind, one thought lingered above all others. There was more to him than people knew. Did you feel that connection? That moment when a feared mafia boss showed his humanity and a waitress saw beyond the monster everyone else feared? That's the power of seeing people for who they really are. If this moment gave you chills, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What's the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what Naomi does next to repay this kindness will absolutely blow your mind. Now, let's fast forward to the moment everything changed forever. Night fell heavy over the city, thick with rain and unspoken threats. Min-suk stood beneath a flickering streetlight in an abandoned lot, collar turned up against the cold. He checked his watch once, then again. The delay felt wrong. In his world, timing was loyalty, and loyalty was everything. Headlights cut through the darkness. A familiar car rolled to a stop. His lieutenant stepped out, face calm, posture respectful. Someone Min-suk had trusted for years. Someone who knew his habits, his routes, his blind spots. You said it was urgent, Min-suk said quietly. It is, the man replied. His voice didn't waver. That should have been the warning. The first shot shattered the night. Min-suk moved on instinct, twisting away as bullets tore into concrete behind him. Shadows erupted from every direction, too many to count. He fought like the man legends were built on, fists and elbows cutting through attackers, disarming one, dropping another. Pain flared along his ribs. Blood slicked his knuckles. Still, he kept moving. But numbers had weight. A baton cracked against his spine. Another blow caught his temple, stars bursting behind his eyes. He staggered, roaring as he took two more down, but hands grabbed him from behind. A blade kissed his side. He grunted, refusing to scream. The lieutenant watched as Min-suk was dragged to his knees. I'm sorry, the man said softly. Kim Jae-sung made a better offer. The name landed harder than any blow. Min-suk laughed through blood. You sold your soul cheap. The punch that followed knocked him into darkness. When he came to, cold concrete pressed against his cheek. His wrists burned bound. His vision swam as he was hauled upright and shoved forward. A warehouse loomed ahead, rusted doors yawning open like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. Inside, the air stank of oil and decay. He was thrown to the floor, boots slamming into his ribs until breathing became a chore. Then the footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Kim Jae-sung emerged from the shadows, impeccably dressed, smiling like a man savoring dessert. "Look at you," Jae-sung said, circling him. "The great Min-suk, brought down by trust." Min-suk spat blood. "You always talk too much.
Jae-sung chút cờ.
You've terrorized the city long enough. Tonight, your empire dies with you." Min-suk lifted his head despite the pain. His men were scattered. Phones are silent. No reinforcements coming. For the first time in years, he understood the truth. He was alone. And then, inexplicably, another image surfaced. Not blood, not violence, but warm light and steady hands. A woman behind a counter. A smile that asked nothing and offered everything. Naomi. The thought steadied him. Jae-sung raised his hand. A gun was placed in it. "Any last words?" he asked. Min-suk met his eyes, defiant even on his knees. Somewhere deep inside, hope flickered, not for survival, but for the kindness he had touched, however briefly. The safety clicked off, and the darkness leaned in. The coffee shop smelled of roasted beans and the faint sweetness of pastries, but today the familiar comfort felt different. Naomi wiped down the counter, glancing at unusual faces scattered among the morning crowd, men whose presence carried the quiet hum of danger. Suits pressed, eyes sharp, fingers tapping lightly against thick rings. Whispers floated through the air like smoke. "The king is gone." Jae-sung finally did it. One voice murmured, low and urgent. Naomi froze mid-motion, heart lurching. She strained to catch more, but words were fragmented, overlapping. Captured, beaten, warehouse. A cold knot formed in her stomach. Min-suk. The man whose kindness had seemed so ordinary now carried the weight of rumor and fear. Her hands trembled slightly as she refilled a cup, trying to appear calm. But her mind raced, replaying every memory, every fleeting smile, every word he had spoken. She leaned closer to a regular customer, a wiry man who sometimes lingered near the counter. "Did you hear? Where exactly?" He hesitated, glancing around. "I only know he's being held in the old industrial district. Beyond that, it's dangerous even asking." Naomi swallowed her fear, feeling it rise and twist. Images of Min-suk came unbidden, his quiet defense when others had mocked her, the way he had looked at her without judgment, the rare, human glance that had cut through the aura of menace surrounding him. Her conscience whispered. "He stood up for me when no one else would." Her fear countered sharply. "This isn't my world. I could die." And yet, the thought of leaving him to face this alone was unbearable. Determination sparked, fierce and blinding. "I can't abandon him." She spent the next hour piecing together fragments, hushed directions, hints dropped by those too cautious to speak plainly. The warehouse location emerged from the puzzle, a grim beacon of where Min-suk's life hung in balance. Naomi's small apartment became a staging ground. She gathered what she could: pepper spray, a taser, her phone, and a resolve sharper than any weapon. Every item she packed felt both inadequate and essential. She paused for a moment, staring at herself in the mirror. The reflection was ordinary, human, but beneath that, courage thrummed, awakening in her chest. "I'm coming for you, Min-suk," she whispered, a vow and a promise in one breath. Night cloaked the streets as she made her way to the industrial district, the familiar cityscape twisting into something darker and more threatening. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified. Yet alongside the fear, determination burned brighter. She would not falter.
Not now.
Not ever. With each step, she replayed the moments they had shared, his calm presence, the coffee he drank, the unspoken connection that had taken root between them. Each memory was fuel, each heartbeat a drumbeat driving her forward. Somewhere deep in the darkness, Naomi's courage swelled, a quiet reckoning. She would not wait for someone else to save him. She would do it herself. The warehouse loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the night sky. Rain-slicked streets reflected dim light, and Naomi's breath came fast. Her hand tightened around the taser. For Min-suk, she was ready. For herself, she was ready. Fear and resolve warred within her, but determination had won. She stepped forward, into the night, toward him. Rain pelted the warehouse roof, a relentless drumbeat that echoed through the empty streets. Naomi hugged the shadows, moving like a ghost along the perimeter, every sense sharpened. The air smelled of oil and damp metal, the dim light casting long, jagged shadows across crates and rusted machinery. Each step she took was calculated, measured, silent, her heart hammering, but her mind clear. Inside, Min-suk knelt on the cold concrete, wrists bound, bruised and bloodied. Kim Jae-sung loomed over him, a sinister smile twisting his features. "Any last words?" he mocked, relishing the sight of his prey. Naomi's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Let him go." Laughter rolled from the gangsters like thunder. "And who are you, little girl?" one sneered, approaching. Naomi stepped into the flickering light, revealing her stance and the small recording device in her hand. "I'm the one who knows everything about your little empire. One wrong move, and this goes public," she said, voice steady, unwavering. A pause. The men's laughter faltered, replaced by incredulous stares. She held up her phone, showing live footage she had managed to record earlier. Proof of their dealings, evidence they couldn't ignore. "Don't underestimate me," Naomi said, the blunt force of her conviction filling the vast warehouse. "I've already called in a few friends. Help is on the way if you don't back off." Chaos erupted. A small explosion ignited at the far end of the warehouse, a diversion Naomi had planted earlier. Smoke curled, alarms blared, shouts and gunfire followed. She darted toward Min-suk, ignoring the burn of fear in her chest, ignoring the panic twisting around her like a living thing. She reached him, crouching to unfasten his bindings. Min-suk groaned, his body battered, yet his eyes flicked up to hers, disbelief mingled with hope. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "Come on." Supporting him as best she could, Naomi led the way through the chaotic maze of crates and shadows. Bullets ricocheted, sparks flew, and every step was a calculated risk. She ducked, weaved, and used crates and machinery for cover, her resourcefulness keeping them alive as they threaded their way toward freedom. The door burst open into the rainy night. Min-suk stumbled, leaning heavily on her. Rain drenched them both, washing blood and grime from bruised skin. Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing attention away from their escape. He finally looked at her, voice hoarse and incredulous. "Why? Why did you come for me?" Naomi's grip tightened on his arm. "Same reason you stood up for me. Because it was right. Can we just take a moment?" Naomi just walked into a warehouse full of killers to save a man she barely knows. That's not just courage. That's the kind of love and loyalty that changes everything. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, if your heart is pounding, show this story some love. Smash that like button, drop a fire in the comments if you think Naomi is an absolute legend, and subscribe because the romance that's about to bloom between these two will hit you right in the feels. Don't go anywhere. Okay, let's see what happens when these two are finally alone together. Naomi's grandmother's old apartment smelled faintly of lavender and dust, a relic of another era tucked away in a quiet part of the city. She guided Min-suk inside, supporting his battered frame, and gently eased him onto the worn couch. The dim light cast long shadows over his bruised face, and Naomi felt a sharp pang of worry, realizing just how close to death he had been. She fetched a bowl of warm water and clean clothes, carefully tending to his cuts and abrasions. Her hands were steady, her touch gentle, though her heart raced with every wince he let slip. She brought him food, sipped water alongside him, and murmured reassurances, soft as a lullaby, letting him rest while she watched over him. The first night was long. Min-suk's fever spiked, leaving him delirious and restless. Naomi stayed awake, seated beside him, brushing damp hair from his forehead, whispering stories to anchor him to reality. Her eyes traced the contours of his face, memorizing lines of pain, courage, and something else, vulnerability he never showed to anyone else. Days passed slowly, recovery measured in small victories, an ability to sit upright, a sip of water without assistance, a laugh at her clumsy attempt to cook noodles. Conversations bloomed between them in the quiet of the apartment. Min-suk spoke of his past, orphaned and alone, forced to survive in a world that demanded ruthlessness. "I became the monster I once feared," he confessed, his voice low, raw. Naomi shared pieces of her life too. Racism, the struggle to belong, her dreams of making a difference through small acts of kindness. Each story built a bridge between them, a fragile trust growing in the warmth of shared vulnerability. Their affection deepened quietly. Min-suk watched the way she moved around the room, a subtle reverence in his gaze. Naomi's hands lingered slightly when changing his bandages, her gentle touch a balm for more than just his body. Laughter erupted between them at small jokes, shared memories, the first genuine smile he had shown in years breaking across his face like sunlight through clouds. One evening, their faces drew close, breath mingling, the air between them thick with unspoken desire. Naomi leaned in, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to pause. But the sharp voice of a news alert on the small TV shattered the moment. Jae-sung's face filled the screen, a bounty flashing below his image, a reward for their capture. Min-suk's eyes darkened. "I'm putting you in danger just by being near me," he murmured, guilt weighing heavy in his tone. Naomi's gaze hardened, unwavering. "Then we end this. Together." Plans were whispered in the dim apartment. Routes, contingencies, strategies to reclaim control. The world outside remained dangerous, unpredictable, but inside these walls, they found an unshakable bond. Together, they would face what came next, each heartbeat a promise of courage, of loyalty, and of something neither dared yet to name. Min-suk sat alone in the dim light of the safe house, staring at the scattered maps and blueprints of Jae-sung's stronghold. His knuckles were still bruised, his body aching, but his mind was razor-sharp. He traced the enemy's positions with a finger, formulating a plan that left no room for hesitation or mercy. Tonight, he would face Jae-sung alone, finish what had been started, and pay whatever price it demanded. Naomi appeared at the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes blazing. "You think I saved you just to watch you throw your life away?" she demanded. Her voice trembled only slightly, betraying the fear she fought to mask. Min-suk looked at her, the weight of his plan pressing down on him. "This is my burden. I can't risk." "No." Naomi stepped closer, cutting him off. "We do this together, or not at all." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the tension thick and heavy. And then, almost instinctively, the space between them closed. Their lips met in a desperate, passionate kiss, full of fear, promise, and the unspoken acknowledgement that neither could face the world alone anymore. When they parted, their foreheads rested together, breaths mingling, resolve mirrored in each other's eyes. Together, they rallied Min-suk's remaining loyal followers, a small but determined force ready to reclaim what had been stolen. The infiltration began under the cover of night, shadows stretching long and deep as they moved with precision. Min-suk fought with renewed purpose, each motion a blend of skill and fury. Naomi proved herself indispensable, hacking security systems, creating diversions, and reading the battlefield with uncanny intelligence. Her quick thinking saved Min-suk more than once, their teamwork seamless, a dance forged in trust and unspoken understanding. Finally, they reached Jae-sung. The room was tense, every breath heavy. Min-suk squared off against his old rival, fists clashing with brutal intensity. "You're a monster, Min-suk." Jae-sung spat, anger and fear mingling in his glare. "Maybe," Min-suk admitted, sweat and blood streaking his face, "but I'm choosing to be something more." The words were both a declaration and a warning. The fight was savage, personal, and exhausting. Naomi kept watch, covering angles, anticipating threats, and acting with instinct born from trust and courage. When the final strike came, Jae-sung crumpled, defeated, his reign of terror ended. The cost was high. Min-suk was wounded, bloodied, but victorious. The empire he had once commanded lay in ruin, and yet for the first time, freedom glimmered on the horizon. Naomi held him as authorities arrived, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Min-suk, breathing hard, allowed himself a moment of surrender, not to defeat, but to the relief of having survived, of having someone beside him who had fought, bled, and loved with equal ferocity. In that quiet aftermath, amid sirens and flashing lights, Min-suk understood he no longer belonged to the world he had built. He had something far more precious, a chance at life, and the woman who had shown him that even monsters could choose differently. Weeks turned into months, each day a quiet testament to healing and transformation. Min-suk stepped further away from the shadowed life he had once ruled, leaving behind the empire of fear and violence that had defined him for years. Therapy sessions replaced clandestine meetings, charity replaced intimidation, and every day he sought to make amends for the wrongs of his past. The man who had once been a legend of terror now worked to become a legend of redemption, rebuilding himself one honest choice at a time. Naomi flourished alongside him. The timid, uncertain waitress who had once questioned her place in the world now ran her own coffee shop, a sanctuary of warmth, laughter, and the comforting scent of roasted beans. With Min-suk's steady support, she had found her independence, her voice, and her strength. She no longer measured her worth by the approval of others. Her confidence radiated quietly, naturally, from the life she had chosen to build. Their bond, tested in fire and shadow, deepened in this new, quieter life. Judgments from their past still lingered, whispered in the edges of their communities, but together they navigated each challenge with unwavering loyalty. They were partners in every sense, supporting dreams, sharing burdens, celebrating victories, and holding one another steady when the world threatened to tilt. 6 months later, the familiar chime of a bell marked the arrival of a customer. Min-suk stepped into Naomi's shop, the soft light catching his face in a way that made him seem just a man, stripped of legend, of fear, of notoriety. Naomi looked up from behind the counter, and her smile, warm, tender, full of unspoken love, lit up the space. "Same order as always?" she asked, her voice soft yet filled with affection. "Always," he replied, letting his hand brush across the counter to hers, their fingers entwining. "And I'm never leaving." In that simple exchange, the world narrowed to just the two of them. No past, no danger, no labels, just love, trust, and the quiet joy of being understood. Life unfolded in shared, ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. Cooking breakfast together, laughing at clumsy attempts at new recipes, tending the coffee shop that had become their haven, giving back to the community, and quietly supporting each other's aspirations. Every gesture, every glance, every shared cup of coffee became a thread in the tapestry of the life they were weaving together. And in the golden light of one late afternoon, as the shop hummed with gentle activity, they paused together. Hands clasped across the counter, smiles soft and eyes bright. The past felt like a distant shadow. They had survived, healed, and found each other in the process. And there it is. A mafia boss who found redemption. A waitress who found her strength. Two souls from different worlds who proved that love doesn't see status, race, or past mistakes. It only sees the heart. If this story moved you, if you felt every moment of fear, hope, and love right alongside Min-suk and Naomi, then this channel is your home for more incredible stories like this. Hit that like button so hard it breaks. This story deserves it. Tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change? Do you think Min-suk and Naomi's love can survive in the real world? I want to hear your thoughts. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe right now and turn on that notification bell because I've got more emotional, powerful, beautifully crafted stories coming your way. Stories about love that defies odds, redemption that transforms lives, and human connection that reminds us all why we're here. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Thank you for believing in second chances. Thank you for being here. Until the next story, remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is see someone's humanity when the whole world has forgotten it. That cup of coffee? It wasn't just coffee. It was hope. It was love. It was everything. See you in the next one. Stay beautiful, stay kind, and keep believing in the power of unexpected connections.